Einen herzlichen, schönen guten Abend zum Ornitreff hier im Seminarraum 4 im Uni Wien Hauptgebäude. Wir haben heute internationale Gäste, deswegen werden wir gleich Englisch weiterreden. We have international guests. Nikolay Yordanov from University of Sofia. Welcome. Applause. He's an expert in bird tracking from eastern Bulgaria at the Black Sea coast. I hope to see this year. And online is Professor Pavel Zehtindjiev.
So, danke schön.
Not
Guten Abend.
We can mute you, you know.
Yes, you can make mute your microphone and I can continue. In case you don't hear me, just give me a sign. I am not a chat GPT, I am a real person, so I will probably understand without any words what happened in this far away, distant Vienna from me. So I am very excited by this opportunity to see people in so big distance from Bulgaria interested in our subject, in our studies, and I am very grateful for people who participate in this meeting. Today is a special day for Bulgaria. It is our national, holidays, and we celebrate independence of Bulgaria after 500 years, 500 centuries. Bulgaria was outside the map of Europe. It was a part of Ottoman Empire, and after some war between Russia and Turkey, and after a long process of liberalization and spontaneous processes in the country, we become a new free country, and we celebrate this today. Actually, it was yesterday, but because Bulgarian mentality is inherited by Turkish Ottoman Empire, we celebrate long time our celebrations. So today is also national holidays. And because of this, I feel obliged to start with a short historical or something interesting for Bulgaria. But first, I will announce why we are here. And we are here because I want to attract your attention to what we did for 10 years, what we are going to do now with this PhD project, and the third part of this presentation, which will be given mainly by Nikolay, is what we propose as international options for international cooperation in the field of where we have some expertise. So can you change the slide, Nikki, please, because I am not able from here. Okay. What we are dreaming all the time is a freedom, like people limited in our movements, and birds are the perfect symbol of freedom because they fly. And the flight developed by evolution always attracted people all the time. And so many studies and novels are dedicated to this symbol of freedom. So Bulgaria also is trying to be free for the whole history, and our story is the story of freedom. So in next slides, please change the slide, Nikki. I cannot do this. I will give you some surprising, even for me, facts that I didn't know. I tried to collect it for you today because of this national special event. But I was also surprised to know that Bulgaria is one of the oldest countries in Europe. It exists quite a long time. And this is the only country in Europe which never changes its name since its formation. So it was a surprise even for me. We have some of the oldest cities in Europe, in Bulgarian territory. These are, for example, Plovdiv. This is a former Philippopolis, a capital of a huge empire of Philip Macedonian, the king of kingdom of later inherited by Alexander the Great. And another city is Stara Zagora. Please change. Ruse is the city connected to Vienna also because it is at the Danube River, and Sofia, of course, one of the oldest capitals in Europe. So Bulgaria, because of this long history and its location between Asia and Europe, is full of history and historical monuments that many of them are even not excavated and not explored. We have so many interesting historical monuments that you can visit in Bulgaria, and I hope one day I will see you here and we can join our excursion in these places. Next slide, please, Nikki. But one event I really find exciting, and this is also exciting because when I was student in Russia, in Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, in 90s, 80s and 90s, last century, 20th century, I found surprising for me that most of people in Russia were informed that the Cyrillic alphabet is created by Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, who is more known like Lenin. But actually, the Cyrillic alphabet is invented or created by Cyril and Methodius, Kirill and Methodius, who lived in the 9th century. And it was the third alphabet in Europe, which now is spread in huge number of people and used by many nations in Europe and in the world. Next slide, please. So based on this rich historical, how to say, history, we have a lot of monuments and milestones that are very interesting. And it seems that Bulgaria is in the third place after Greece and Italy, according to excavated archaeological monuments. For example, one of the most oldest Thracian gold treasures found in Europe are located in Bulgaria and found in Bulgaria, and over 60,000 Thracian mounds are excavated, but over 2,000 archaeological monuments are still not investigated in our country. So it's full of exciting things. But let's go to some more interesting subject for me, and I hope for you. In this evening, we have to discuss scientific subjects. So that's why I focus also for some facts related to Bulgarian achievements in application of science and discoveries of some very useful tools for our everyday life. So, for example, maybe you don't know, but surprisingly, the first computer was invented in 1939 by John Atanasov, which is Bulgarian person. The copy machine, very often used in our practice, not very often now, but for many years, it was a main tool for copying our scientific materials and publications, and it give it actually a strong push to development of scientific mentality, thinking, and research by this option to copy many copies of very important scientific publications. So also this electronic watch, which is old-fashioned, but still I found that now in high fashion, haute couture French styles, it appear again as an electronic watch, and this is also invented by Bulgarian person Peter Petrov. So Nikki, change. We have also input in the first moonwalker construction and his suite, and the very interesting safety airbags, which are in every car, are invented by Bulgarian Nikolay Yordanov. The same name like Nikki, but the thing is that in the moment, maybe every second, these airbags save hundreds and thousands human lives around the globe. Also, vaccine against tuberculosis invented by Dr. Stamen Grigorov, also Bulgarian scientist. And this is very revolutionary invention that changed the life of many people. Next slide, Nikki, please. And some curious facts. I will finish with this. I promise. It is a medicine Nivolin, which is designed to treat and heal the poliomyelitis. It is infantile paralysis, very bad disease, and it is invented by Dimitar Paskov. It is an extraction from a plant growing in as endemic species in Bulgaria. The next, and very, very interesting, and also related to Vienna discovery, is the medicine, very common name, known as an anti-baby. This is a pill that can regulate pregnancy and planning of families, and this a chemical engineer and Karol Gerasi, who is born in Vienna, but his father was a Bulgarian, and this is a Bulgarian connection in this case. Please change the next slide. So in the end, I must tell you that the Bulgarian symbol of Bulgaria is the rose, and this is a symbol of perfection. So because it is also symbol of infinity, of this form of the leaves of this beautiful plant flower. We found a symbol of Bulgaria because we find the similar, how to say, intentions and our strong preferences, or how to say, goals to infinity and freedom. So thank you. Change the slide. And now we come to the most interesting for me part of this introduction. This is why and what we have done for the moment, where we are working, and how is organizing our work. So before I give floor to Nikolay to present his project, I must tell you a few words about our preliminary, how to say, former studies, give you basement for understanding of this project in the moment. We have a field station which is located in Danube Plain, Danube Valley, in a very remote territory from big cities, in 3 kilometers from the nearest settlement. So it is far away from light pollution, from sound of industry. There are some very weak impact of agriculture around, but mostly we can hear only natural sound of frogs, birds, and wind. So this advantage of this location give us options or good base for investigation, for representative investigation studies on birds which are representative for large territories of plain temperate zone of Europe. The station is very well equipped. We have even a magnetic room where we study the geomagnetic field impact or significance for orientation of birds. We also breed some rare and endangered bird species. So we do research in many different fields of ornithology, including, and the recent, let's say 5 years, we started GPS GSM tracking of birds and environmental impact assessment studies. Change please the slide, Nikki. So one of the important milestones in our studies, I would like to say, is or to present to your attention, is the calibration of weather radars. So we know, or maybe not everybody, but many of you heard about application of weather radars in large scale studies or observation of bird migration. But when you come closer to this subject, you find that algorithm for extraction of this data from weather radars is a very conservative, so it extracts a lot of data which is supposed to be birds, but actually nobody tested whether these birds exist or not. And to test this, we selected a special location near the garbage place in about 10 kilometers from the sea coast, where the birds traveled every day from the city Varna to this garbage place. And this way we use an advantage of garbage place to study regular movement of a constant number of birds, gulls, yellow-legged gulls, Mediterranean gulls, yellow-legged Mediterranean gull, Varus michaelis, from the city to garbage place. So this way we had the chance to test whether the radar discover exactly the peaks of flights, the peak moment when birds fly from the city to the garbage and back every day, and to calibrate the radar to this certain number, constant number of birds that we observe every day. So Nikki, please show the next slide. What we found that there is a quite big difference between the radar and the reality. So the radar discovered 3 peaks of flights and missed 2 peaks of flights. So in few words, just to save time, I must say that you are going to study bird migration by radar, especially weather radar, which is not calibrated in the location with the real birds, you are in the big trouble, and you should combine your observation definitely obligatory with some calibration with visual observation, because otherwise you can be very far from the reality. So next slide. It is my favorite study that is I will describe in few words. This small bird is a paddy-field warbler. It's actually is unique for Europe, because this species breeds in a very small corner in one patch of a lake Durankulak in northeastern part of Bulgaria, in a very specific habitat of reeds, and the species repeat the great historic heroic adventure of Marco Polo from Europe to Asia, which discovered and traced the Silk Road for us. But this bird make this road regularly every spring and autumn, and this bird is 10 grams big. So we tested the bird before we had chance to track this bird. We tested in Emlen funnels, and this of you who knows about Emlen funnels are constructed to demonstrate migratory direction, inherited program, genetic program of birds during migration. So in our cage experiments in Kalimok station, we demonstrated a genetic program of this bird, and how the direction of migration changed during the time of autumn. So later, and this was published, and surprisingly, we discovered that in a long period of time, the bird demonstrates two directions. So it can change all the time during the long period during autumn migration, to change from one to another direction, probably. And to test this, we used that light logger later, 1.5 gram light logger, which collect location based on sunrise and sunset, and we tested whether this theory is real. Fortunately, we tracked selected data from this species. Nikki, next slide. And this data confirmed our observations, and we should change several slides to track how it changed. Please, Nikki, change next and next. So we observed this movement of bird, and even until and we traced the bird until and the end of this story, the end of the trip in autumn in India. So I think this was one of the most excited studies we did, because it was in more than 10 years ago. So in this period, it was quite difficult to manage with these devices and to understand how it function, to manage, catch, and to keep the birds and catch them back when they arrive back in Bulgaria. So please change the slide. And next species we investigated with the same technique was the nightingale. Probably you are familiar or heard or read the publication already in scientific journals about this study. But I here just for these few words should mention that the study of continent of different populations in Europe would be not possible without our input of Kalimok Station in our team of ornithologists in this study. So this practically was the first in Europe study of small passerine bird migration of long distance migrants which cross Sahara and Mediterranean Sea. Next slide. We established exactly the timetable and the connectivity of our population with the breeding and between breeding and wintering site in Africa. Next slide. So this was the first, and for me, a very inspiring study, because it actually gave us chance to apply this technique, and it was really a, how to say, inspiration for a long time before we understood that this technique is good, but it is quite raw, so it does not allow you very much very precise studies. Next slide. So our favorite species for the many years of experimental studies of bird malaria, orientation, physiology, and connectivity is great-red warbler. Why it is selected for by us? It is not actually selected by us. It started. It was a love from the first look. I met Staffan Bench in the conference in Germany, in Wilhelmshaven, in 2007, and he asked me whether we can keep great-red warblers for a long time in the aviaries, in semi-wild conditions. And I said, why not? Why not? What is Drossel? Drossel Rohrzanger. Yes, this is the German name, sorry. But if there are questions, I will answer, and Nikki later. So just enjoy in the moment, like how to say, exotic species. This actually the area of Kalimok Station is in Europe maybe the first place, the highest density of these breeding birds. We have density of around 10 to 20 pairs per square kilometers. It is a huge number of breeding great-red warblers. And what we discovered actually is that Bulgarian population has unique wintering strategy. Bulgarian populations are not stable. They are not static in Africa. They move during the wintering season inside Africa, even crossing the equator. So some of them change wintering sites. I don't know what is the reason, but maybe later when Nikolay present results from our studies on magnetic field, geomagnetic field, maybe we can come back to this question, why they move in Africa and what does it indicate. Next slide, please. So we established this continent-wide patterns of migration also of beaters, and beater is a interesting, exciting, beautiful bird, but also a bird species with conservation significance in Europe. Fortunately, in Bulgaria, it is a common bird breeding practically everywhere, and we can see this bird everywhere. But we didn't know exactly how the migration happen and where these birds are wintering in Africa. Now, after this study with this devices, geolocator, light locators, we now know exactly location of wintering Bulgarian birds. Next slide. These are the location where we already not suppose, we are sure that they are wintering in these locations, and this allow us also to start thinking about studies on bird malaria, exchange of parasites, coevolution of parasite and birds, and many different aspects. So these basement studies, basic studies, which we take part and which gave us a good experience and qualification, are actually, and we are very proud, that's why I am talking about this, are the base for the study, which now are in preliminary stages with this GPS, GSM tracking of great common buzzers that Nikolay will present later. Next slide, Nikki. So, okay, I must say also one or few words about Spanish sparrow. This is also enigmatic species in Europe. Many people does not even recognize this species because they are very similar to Italian sparrow, to domestic sparrows. They are more colorful and bright, and they look better. But actually, the big difference is in migratory habit of this species. This is a typical long distance migrant. They disappear from the breeding sites in the beginning of autumn and appear in the end of spring together with insectivorous long distance migrants. So this species is a typical migratory species, and we discovered this migration pattern. Unfortunately, the loggers stopped working in this area in Egypt, but actually we suppose that the journey and migration continued somewhere deeper in Africa, according to timetable and appearance of bird in breeding sites in Bulgaria. So we discovered this very interesting, and to my knowledge, it is the first study that discovered and show the migration of Spanish sparrows from Europe to Africa. Next. Okay, we are coming closer to modern technology. Actually, for me, it was not is not a very modern. My first experience was in 1996, when together with Dr. Johan Muisch from Netherlands, actually, or between Netherlands and Germany, he's living. He studied mainly white-fronted goose, and we tried to track red-breasted goose and lesser white-fronted goose. Please help me with German names, but I think these are two of the very rare bird species in Europe. So we tried to use this satellite transmitter PTT 100 of microwave, and unfortunately, okay, Zwerggans, yeah, that's richtig. and red-breasted goose. And unfortunately, during our experiment with these two species, the war in Yugoslavia started, and these extraordinary conditions stopped the NASA all contracts with civilian contracts for tracking birds, and our battery was dead in the end of the year when the war ended. So when the war ended, our battery also ended, and we found our transmitters deconstructed by hunters next season, but unfortunately we obtained only a few signals from Romania, and this is the end of the story, but just to give you a comparison, what does it mean? Do you hear me? Okay. Okay. So I moved to place with better internet. So in this time, Bulgaria was in a very bad economic situation. In 1997, when we released this in nature after 1 year experiments, because one of these satellite transmitter, the price of one of these transmitters, we used 3 of them, but one was 2,700 United States dollars. And the average salary per month in Bulgaria was $10. And my personally salary was $3 in Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. So you can imagine what fortune was one of these satellite transmitters for us to release this in nature with a bird. Thank you, Petra. And so this is the end of the story. The success was very slow. And now I will give floor one slide more just to tell you that our current efforts are focused on application of all our experiment, all our experience and knowledge about birds for applicable tools to protect and save birds in areas where the wind farms start to develop in Bulgaria. Our studies started year before in Bulgaria, any wind turbine was installed. And this is a good chance because we can compare before and after effect based on good comparison of data. Next slide. You will see here, and you see a team of ornithologists which started these studies and our Austrian connection. So one of the first people I met in my life for another project, moon watching project, this is Martin Rosler. I am very grateful for his attendance and his help during the field studies in Bulgaria in beginning of this in 2009, when his input actually is priceless because he is the one who first showed us how serious we must be in respect to wind turbines, and he's the first person who challenged the radar constructed by Swiss Ornithological Institute for studying for detection of birds, for special bird tracking and counting quantification. And Martin was the person who put under big question mark the distance of birds in these radar estimations. And we tested with the kite, Austrian kite, very expensive one, 150 euros. We tested with GPS hanged on this kite. We tested movement and data from the radar, and Martin was correct. The radar was wrong, and we corrected this software. And fortunately, later we already had a good tool for observations. But here you can see our first step in this territory. Next slide. So we based on these long-term studies, we developed a special, we call it integrated system for protection of birds. And this system is based on 3 different radar systems, number of very experienced field ornithologists, but unique in this integrated bird protection system is the fact that 12 different companies operating wind turbines are joined together to protect birds. So this is to my knowledge only the case in the world when you can point different companies working together and stopping turbines together under direction of ornithologists. Usually it's happened for one single company for number of turbines, but we operate 114 wind generations in 60 square kilometers and practically provide safe passage, and especially in the days with intensive bird migration. Next slide. So these efforts of our team are documented with another also Austrian input. This is Dr. Stefan Schindler who who did a report, evaluation of efficiency of this system and efforts of our team, and Bern Convention, as a result of this evaluation of his report, closed the file against the wind turbines in Kaliakra in 2022, last year, 2 years ago. So now about our study, which will be presented in details next slide. So this important, what I must say is that I must just take a look what is in my notes, but just a second. Why we started this study? Because what I found in my work in the moment, that we are missing quantitative quantification of the impact. Very often, for example, in mapping tools, sensitivity mapping tools, strategic tools, environmental impact assessment, especially concerning cumulative impact, European Commission and many politicians gives very unclear, very how to say, general instructions, but nobody give precise measurements of impact. So we need a quantification of this impact. This is why we started with this first step, and from my point of view, it's a very good direction to develop a real quantification. How exactly are displaced birds? How exactly they are killed? How many? What is the direct impact? And now I give floor to Nikolay to present his PhD project, and I hope in the end we will have a discussion, maybe not with me, but with him, in the better, without these electrons in the space, and continue this discussion later in a pub or somewhere. So I am here and give floor to Nikolay. Thank you for your attention.
So, in order to find the best model species, we have investigated sparrowhawks, kestrels, and common buzzards in last 2 years. Our preliminary results indicate limitation for smaller raptor species such as sparrowhawks and kestrels. The existing GSM devices has no ability to provide energy in winter seasons in our Bulgarian conditions. Another limitations we have found is relatively high rate of mortality and short lifespan of those two species. Common buzzards are a perfect model for this study because they are numerous, and the species inhabit territories with operating wind turbines. The species is reported in publications as sensitive in respect to wind turbines, and it's through the victims of direct collisions with the turbines. It is relatively easy to trap for trapping and handling, as well as for direct visual identification in the field. Our preliminary results show a variety of evolutionary strategies in the species, which obviously provide the population with high adaptive potential to change conditions, including wind turbines and related infrastructure. Our preliminary results already allow us to focus on differences in the behavior of the same individual in area with turbines and area without turbines in breeding season. These results were presented at a conference last year in Croatia and are available under request. We hope our future experiments and results will put light on this aspect of bird behavior in details. Most important indicator of impact is the direct mortality of birds in wind farm areas as a result of collisions. This is why we have planned to use the data collected in systematic study of bird mortality. Our data allow analysis of the spatial distribution of carcass searches results in period between 2009, when first wind turbines are constructed until present moment. We control 114 wind turbines in respect of habitats, in variety of habitats. All the searches are performed in line with the best practices and recommendations of the experts in this field of research. We have permanent control for the external reviewers of our results from IBRS and IFC, and this is a guarantee for high quality of the data set. We have tested efficiency of the searchers as well as scavenging rate for this territory once per winter and autumn periods. As a result, we have efficient frequency of searches once per week for every turbine during migratory seasons and wintering period, and one per month during the rest of the year. As you see on the slide, the most frequent collisions victims are common bird species such as gray partridge and starlings, followed by yellow-legged gulls and larks. My first goal in the study is to find out which habitat correspond to the highest mortality rate and how the correlations is changing during the seasons. For this, we're going to investigate in details quality of the habitats and land cover and the plots with wind turbines tested for collisions victims over last 15 years and especially last 4 years when we have much better coverage of habitats. Our preliminary results are presented here for your consideration. We can see already in this stage strong variation of bird orders in respect to land cover. Our expectation is also to have some support for this figure from the analysis of our GPS GSM data analysis in GIS. To have a representative sample size of data, we have installed already 9 GPS GSM tracking devices on common buzzards in area with wind generators. So our data is accumulated in data set with continuously increasing number of fixes with exact locations, altitude, activity status, and temperature, which also allow us to study behavior of the tracked bird. The detailed data set is a subject to our today discussions. We would like to attract as many as possible collaborators to our attempts to combine efforts which will bring more data together for our analysis. We expect to have more data for common buzzards behavior, but also additional species tracked in areas with wind turbines. Austria seems a good place for such data because of installed capacity already existing in the country. We also hope to find solution for technical problems related to the GPS technology. Since the Russian invasion in Ukraine and started as a result of this invasion, this war we will no more have signals from our birds. And this is obviously effect of electronic suspension of the GPS signals. And we hope if there is a method to resolve this problem with the help of our colleagues in Austria. On this slide, we see the differences in the GPS quality application in the study area before the war and now, according to a site where all pilots of airplanes publish information about limitations they have in application of GPS. This is a disaster and complete repetition of the situation in 1996 when we traced red-breasted geese and the war in Yugoslavia stopped our great study. This time we hope it will not happen, and we hope for international collaboration in this direction. Some side effects of the war in Ukraine was also registered by our GPS tracking project in the period before the signal stopped. This is how a common buzzard, Victoria, who is breeding in Karelia every year, crosses the territory with the bombs and explosions. The data indicates dramatic impact on migratory birds in almost 1,000 kilometers front line. In our case study, we have a delay over 60 days. Please note the fact that this is the same experienced bird which know exactly the migratory route. Imagine what happened with juvenile and sub-adult birds which has no experience in migration. This is a dramatic, strong and unpredictable impact for the entire migratory system in this part of Palearctic. Our obligation is to put this fact into the focus of international scientific community. One more concomitant result from our tracking data is the confirmation of strong guiding role of geomagnetic field for migrating birds. We have overlapped maps of geomagnetic gradient in colors and tracking data from birds. And first, let's take a look on the biggest magnetic anomalies in the Earth. There are two really big anomalies where magnetic compass does not work. One is located in Central Africa, and the second is in Russia near Kursk. Our data show clear avoidance of the direct crossing of such territories by migrating red-breasted geese in 2020. There could be 1 million additional reasons for this deviation from the direct way to breeding grounds, but it inspired us to test this hypothesis in different species migrating over magnetic anomalies during their seasonal migrations. First, we tested the same red-breasted geese, but with data collected in 2012 and 2030 seasons. This data confirmed that same migratory detour of the Kursk magnetic anomaly. There is a generally accepted theory about this migratory route as a historical inherited initiate program, but it does not explain why red-breasted geese do not optimize its energy expenditures. Another example of strong influenced by magnetic anomaly is spatial distribution of migratory bird is alpine swift in Africa, as demonstrated by our tracking data. European alpine swifts do not enter exactly territory of Bangu magnetic anomaly in Central Africa. In particular, the migrating regularly to Kaliakra common buzzard Victoria circumvent the Kursk magnetic anomaly in Russia. This behavior is observed in two autumn and two spring migratory seasons. We expect this spring to see whether the same individual will circumvent again the Kursk magnetic anomaly. In order to go deeper in these observations, we overlapped the intensity of geomagnetic field in the region of Kursk magnetic anomaly with the fixes of common buzzard Victoria. There are several narrow bottlenecks where the same bird always passes during migrations in spring and autumn, and these bottlenecks are always in the location with pink intensity of geomagnetic field. We hope with this initial and very preliminary data to inspire ornithologists for future research in this new direction of tracking data applications. In the end of my presentation, I would like to share with our view my strong intention to collaborate in order to resolve above described limitations and successfully finish my PhD project. For this, I need your support in order to develop exchange of data and know-how in the field of GPS tracking of birds and especially raptors as most sensitive to wind turbine species. Let me remind again limitations we have identified in this moment. So this is the limitations of data from Max Planck Institute, resistance for any cooperation from conservation NGO sector in Bulgaria. Know-how of Austrian ornithologists is highly appreciated. So thank you for your attention and hospitality.
And just to conclude, our main question, if the birds know about Schengen, they don't know, and birds know no boundaries, no borders. Thank you.
Yes.
If
Can I raise my question?
we can hear you, but not very good.
Okay.
You're far away. Maybe it's the Kursk anomaly between us.
Yeah, could be because I'm in Sweden. Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Somehow.
Yes, start.
I have different questions. First, I would be interested to know more about this resistance from the conservation NGO sector in Bulgaria and why this takes place. That is the first question. The second one, you had you talked about this one buzzard, which you could show that it's influenced by the Russian attack on Ukraine. And I wonder, do you have this kind of data for more than one species? And the third question is, you had this slide which started my PhD thesis, and you showed the different 200 meter times 200 meter fields. And I wonder, how did you orient those fields? Because some were oriented in the one direction, the other one in the other direction. Was this done randomly, or was it according to the main direction of the wind power station? It's one perhaps further behind. Yes, this one to the right bottom. So how was this blue search fields of 200 times 200 meters oriented? So that's my third question. Thank you.
Maybe better if I answer to your questions, and maybe when I because Nikolay does not know most of these preliminary studies on searches. Let's start from the end. Do you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay. The last question about the plots searched by collision victims. This is a square, 200 to 200 meters. It's not oriented. It includes all possible all habitats. Doesn't matter if it is a shelter belt, agricultural fields, or row, or doesn't matter what kind of surface is it. It was designed 200 to 200 meters because of the altitude of turbines. These turbines are Vestas V19, which are 126 meters, so top. And this is why we decided, and we studied, of course, some preliminary and published research studies about collision victims, and we estimated that these 200 to 200 meters must be enough for discovering of the collision victims. Of course, we collect data on availability of territory, because not all the seasons this territory is 100% available for searches. There are periods in the year when some crops are grow it. Some crops cover the surface, and we cannot manage with cereals, for example, with wheat, with corn, sunflowers. When they are in the end of the autumn, 2 meters high, we cannot search the whole territory. That is reflected in our data. So we estimated, based on all these assumptions, that we discover about 50% of the real mortality. So our mortality must be, which is in the table here, must be multiplied in 2 to come to relatively close to normal real mortality which exists in the moment. And the same is supported by collision risk model. If we try to estimate by modeling this risk. So it's very close to this mortality which we found in the experiments. So the next question, if you are happy, I can continue with the what I remember is a question about the NGO resistance for cooperation. This is by tradition in Bulgaria. Birdlife Bulgaria is very, very strict against wind turbines. It is from very beginning of this process, and because of this historical, how to say, tradition, wind turbines are focused as a main threat and main enemy of birds. And they do, most of the studies done in Bulgaria are paid by Life Plus projects, and they are focused mainly on protected birds of conservation significance, like vultures, imperial eagle, and I don't think there are many other species traced by GPS. Actually, these few species, also lesser spotted eagle recently is one of the objects of these studies, but this data is not transparent, so we cannot use this data because it is not published. And when we ask for this data, we receive usually a simple answer. We are saving our target species from illegal hunters or something like this, and they don't share the data because they are afraid that someone can damage this rare bird species of conservation significance. This is the argument. So officially they have a very good argument, but my opinion is that this is historically based on this first position against wind turbines in the very beginning, and continuous tradition to slow down the process of development of wind turbines, which is, from my point of view, useless strategy, because well, there are so many, how to say, opinions about this direction, but the way we should decide and manage this problem is accumulation of scientific data and knowledge and solutions. And this is the problem, that understanding of these two parts, scientific part and common public opinion about the huge damage of wind turbines on birds, is fighting. They are fighting, and as a result, in Bulgaria, because of, you can probably not understand the whole complications in our historical moment now, because we are passing through changes after a very strong political police impact on our society, and consequences of these limitations for a long time, limitations in exchange of information, exchange of free opinions. So people are not able to listen each other. And in the moment we are growing these abilities, this habit in the society, and we are still far away from this free conversation of different opinions. So we are now in the moment experience long-term impact of great socialistic revolution in 1917, which impacted our current life almost 100 years later. So you see, this is like a genetic impact. For example, some populations are impacted by evolutionary bottlenecks in 100,000 years ago, and Bulgaria is impacted by something that happened long time ago, over 100 years ago. So this is the reality, and we cannot change this. I'm trying all the time. I am a member of many of these organizations, but it is difficult to change mentality of people. So I don't remember the rest of the questions, but maybe Nikki can add something. Did you write? Do you have written these questions, Nikki?
I can repeat it. The third question is, do you have for more than this one buzzard this data which shows the impact of the Russian war?
No, unfortunately, no, sorry. Unfortunately, we tested the GPS devices we use on 3 species. We tested them in kestrel, sparrowhawk, and common buzzard, and also ruddy shelducks, one of waterfall birds. Ruddy shelduck. This is a Tadorna ferruginea. It's a duck. So we tested GPS devices on these 3 species, and smaller species like kestrel and sparrowhawks, they have a very frequent mortality by different reasons, like many different reasons, and short lifespan. So, and what we don't have another bird crossing front line. It is in our Bulgarian populations of common buzzards, it's not very often long distance migration. Most of the birds are settled, permanent settlement. They never migrate, or if they migrate close distances to Romania, Carpathian region, or Danube river somewhere in the winter, but they don't make these long distance migrations. And only this is the only individual for the moment, but we are planning to install more than 20 GPS loggers, GPS devices on common buzzards next season and collect more data. And this is the big risk, because we can buy these devices, which are very expensive, and then receive zero result because of this war, which is really a disaster, because you see we have no signal. For example, for our 6 birds in the moment, for over 3 months we have no one signal.
Thank you.
Welcome. By the way, I know about the anomaly in Sweden. Thomas Allerstam investigated this anomaly, and I have a publication. He observed behavior of bird migrating through this anomaly in more than 30 years ago, and he published first results on this, and they are very exciting.
Okay, thank you. I put also a publication just in the chat, which I did together with an international team on implications of Russia's invasion of Ukraine for the governance of biodiversity conservation. And yeah, I think the colleagues would be very interested in this result, or in a broader, reliable result on more species or more individuals, where this impact can be shown. There are quite some very prominent bird watchers among the authorship. So if you have more data or more results, that would be really interesting. Thank you.
Hopefully, yes. Thank you.
Gibt es bei uns eine Frage? Is there a question here locally at university since 1365? I have a question because I researched posats in the past, phylogeny. Maybe that's why Professor Pavel Zehtindjiev approached me. There is the strictly migratory race of the eastern vulpinus subspecies, which is genetically identical. And do you have them migrating through your area? And is maybe this buzzard there's an integration? So northeastern buzzards are migrating, and vulpinus all are migrating. So there's a gradient.
Yes, Martin, we have both. We have vulpinus in the winter. It's a common wintering race or subspecies. Even some our ornithologists call it species, and we are fighting all the time. What is what is species? What is subspecies? I am very grateful for your input in phylogeny, but I'm very suspicious against for taxonomists in general, because usually people understand each other only in a small cycle of specialists, and and only few people understand exactly what does it mean. But in reality, there are so many. You know the French name of this species, Buzzard variable, which means a very variable species. And so many forms between this behavior. When we started to investigate the movement, migratory ecology and strategy of these species, I was also very surprised to see that exactly this Victoria, the bird which is breeding in Karelia, comes in the same garden every winter. And this is a third winter we track the bird from Karelia to Bulgaria, and it winters in the same tree every winter. And now we observe the bird, but we don't see signals. We don't have signals from the GPS, but we see the bird. So the bird is in the site. Unfortunately, we cannot collect data. This is the problem. So, but vulpinus is existing, and this will be very interesting. I agree to put some of these GPS devices on vulpinus and track it. The problem is only in the money and the number of GPSs we can buy, because we are focused on the area with wind turbines, and I'm afraid if we use vulpinus as an object, they will disappear in the area without any wind turbines. So this is all. Gesundheit.
Okay, I have several questions, but I'm going to limit them to two. Why, would you explain the lack of storks on your table? Because, I mean, I'm Bulgarian, and I have been working for an NGO, so I have a theory of why NGOs are not contributing, but I'm going to keep it to myself. But for me, just to give a context, the density of the wind farms in Bulgaria is really different from what I see in Austria. And you have to imagine there's a much bigger number of birds crossing as what you see here. But it's a very well-known stork migration route. So for me, it's really puzzling to see absolutely no storks here. Seeing that you see so many small birds as well. Obviously, you find casualties from different genuses and no storks. Would you have any explanations of that? And also back to your map with different habitats and that you were trying to figure out if there's any difference. It's not really a different habitat, it's arable land. How are you going to do a difference between them, and what's your radius? What you're going to consider about that? Because for me, they're mostly on arable land. So yeah, is it going to be crop difference or yeah? Thank you.
The question is for long time period studies, which Nikolay is not involved. We investigate mortality from very beginning of operation of these wind farms that you see in the map. Kaliakra is, you can open the Max Planck Institute data explorer on the map, and you will see the migratory flyway of white storks demonstrated in over 100 studies in 10 years. Maybe 300 or 400 individuals are traced by GPS devices in this period of over 10 years. From Eastern Europe, from Central Europe, from Germany, from Poland, so different populations. You can see these tracks, join them in the map. You will see that Kaliakra is quite avoided. So the territory, because it is a cape, you see this is easternly, it is in the Black Sea, so it's a cape, Cape Kaliakra, and the surround its vicinity of the cape. So this territory practically is inside the sea, so white storks are not very keen. They don't like to fly in this like a trap territory because they can appear in the open sea, which is not the favorite, how to say, flying substrate. They don't like to fly over the aquatories because of difference in the thermals. And probably this is the main reason why we don't observe white storks here in general, but why they are not in the collision victims. If you check publications, white storks are not often collision victims. It's at all. This species is synanthropic. They know very well habits of people and infrastructure. They die in a high number in electric power lines, electrocution, and also collision with electric power lines. But in the wind turbines, it is not very often case of collision. So probably this is not a surprise that we don't find it. And we don't have any single case of white stork collision, not only in this wind park, but also according to all accumulated data in Bulgaria. So in respect to this, the distribution of this in the map, you see the land cover, it is true, but the habitats here are quite different. So the green parts along the coast are typical Sarmatian steppes habitat, protected habitat. It is like a carpet of flowers, and this is not absolutely nothing related to non-irrigated agricultural lands which are in the middle of the territory. So this explains actually the difference in the species found under turbines. And if this is the task of this PhD, that we go now deeper in the analysis of habitats, we are going to investigate exactly quality of habitats. Quality of habitats means, for example, for buzzards, it is not only the dominating trees or dominating vegetation, but also availability of mice, of the typical food for this species and during the season. So we are going to investigate dynamic of this mortality during the spring, autumn, breeding seasons. And this is the subject of the PhD. And on the map, we just show land cover as it is in the moment, because it is just one example. But for the analysis, we are going to use satellite pictures with a high resolution, which will be cross-checked and calibrated at the surface. So we are going to use special technique, special method, and land our satellite pictures precisely on the habitats, on the site, on the land, and investigate processes in a very, very high resolution level. Is it okay? Is my answer? The habitats are not the same in this map. There are so many different habitats in this area.
Yeah, if there are no questions, we will, as we are here in person, we will go somewhere else, if you like, and we have a direct conversation. I think there are no questions. Some are leaving already online because it's quite long. Thank you for your talk and contribution. Thank you for questions and attention. And I hope to see you and others again in the future with another lecture on. Yeah, and we stop the recording.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for participation and for attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for your contribution directly from Bulgaria. And thank you for contribution from Volker from Sweden.